Hey, what's up, everybody? I'll provide a link down below because a lot of you probably have heard me talk about this, and it's an update to something I talked about almost 4 years ago. In fact, I talked about this on November 8th, I think it was November 8th, 2008. Yeah, it's hard to believe it's almost been 4 years since I talked about it. Well, 5 years considering if you just want to go straight and not add a year, but you kind of get the idea. Everybody, with any kind of media, whether it's animation or either animation or comic books or live action, there's always the hints. It's like you always know right off the start, or right from the start, who the love interest, who the romantic couple or couples are going to be. Now I'm sure in sitcom shows or live action shows like, say, Friends, the ever popular show that it was kind of a throw off at first. Like, you didn't really know who was going to be paired with who until maybe a few episodes in, or until half a season in. Now, with animation, it's the same thing. Sometimes you know right off the bat, like in classic Disney films, sometimes a DreamWorks film, a Warner Brothers film, 20th Century, Blue Sky. You know right off the bat, almost like from the very beginning, even in the advertisements in the trailer for that animated film, exactly who is going to be paired up with who. And in the case of Scooby-Doo, of shows like Scooby-Doo, you kind of get that idea, like you know right off the bat who's going to be with who. When Scooby-Doo began back in '69 and mostly throughout the '70s, I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys that grew up on it would probably agree that the most obvious pairing right off the bat was Fred and Daphne, and then there might be some subtle hints of Shaggy and Velma. But according to some people, there were even subtle hints of something else. What are those? Well, I'll get into those in a minute. I'll get into those into a minute, or into a second. I'll get into those in just a second, I should say. But the thing is, there were always subtle hints to something else there. But what was that? Well, with any kind of show, there were always subtle hints to another pairing, to another romantic pairing, instead of the most obvious pairing. But what were those subtle hints? Who was the pairing that was hinted at times, but never really became a reality? Well, I'll tell you. Nowadays, with Mystery Incorporated, and of course, movies like what you see in front of you now, live action, animated, the most obvious romantic couple around is Fred and Daphne, the most obvious one, continuity-wise, in today's perspective of this franchise. But did you know that throughout the Scooby-Doo original run from the 60s, 70s, 80s, and even 90s, well, mostly 80s. Well, let's just say mostly 80s, 70s a bit, and maybe a bit of 69. Did you know there was a subtle hint of another pairing? Let me explain. According to a page I talked about on my original video back in 2008, called the Hopeless Romantics page, there is this person that wrote this down kind of explains, and believe it or not, there's a lot of people that talk about this and are in favor of it, talk about the fact that Daphne and Shaggy make a better couple. Here's why. According to this, the Fred and Daphne dynamic is almost too obvious, like I mentioned at the beginning of this video. They mention this. Now, here's what gets them to look at this in a sense. They get on this. But here's what, well, basically, sorry for that little space out there, a little silent part, but here's what got this person, individual, that wrote this down. to kind of get behind this. To kind of get behind this whole situation. It was the first episode of 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo that got them hooked on this idea of Shaggy and Daphne. Now she said the reason Fred and Daphne, even like I said, with the current continuity or the current run of the franchise, the reason it works is because it goes with the old traditional dynamic. Well, kind of old traditional dynamic. And that dynamic is handsomest guy gets the prettiest girl. But this is the way this person looks at it. And I think I mentioned this in my other video, but to update it, this is the way this person looks at it. They say they like that idea, the handsome guy, prettiest girl hookup, but with a twist. They say Shaggy, and we all pretty much know this, is by far a more favorite character, popular character than Fred. Probably even now with Mystery Incorporated running, is still the same way. And they even mentioned, and I think I mentioned this in my other video, Fred comes in last in the surveys. So they suggest, why not pair the most favorite human character, human male character, with the most popular female human character in Daphne? And that's what I explained in my original video, that the reason Daphne was brought back, and I even mentioned this in my Cartoon Flashback HD, is she was brought back due to the fact that she was the third most popular character on the show. She was brought back as the third most popular character. Yes, to bring in female viewers. Yes, to give them a female role model. But because she was pretty, she was drawn as a pretty girl, and also she was the third most popular behind Shaggy and Scooby. Now they say they give examples. They give examples of the embrace in the episode To All Ghouls I've Loved Before. And they say, and basically they ask the question, what else do I have to say in Shaggy and Daphne's defense with that? And they said even before Fred and Velma rejoined the gang, it was just she and Shaggy for a while, with only two dogs for chaperones, traveling the world. You gotta admit, it was a cozy situation. She even uses the new Scooby-Doo episode, No Thanks, Masked Manx, as another great example. Another example in defense of the pairing of Shaggy and Daphne. Stating that Daphne seems to take Shaggy home to meet her folks, who are quite fond of him. And even mentions that Daphne's mom calls him a knight in shining armor. They mention that Daphne and Shaggy dance at the masquerade ball. And then mention in the episode Me and My Shadow Demon, which I think is a part of 13 Ghosts, I'm not really sure, or it could be part of the all-new Scooby-Doo show, that they mention in that episode, while they're waiting for Scooby to finish singing a particular long note, Shaggy and Daphne lean against each other back to back. And they even mention, and this is what's going to clue a lot of people in it, for those that didn't watch the original video or haven't read this, and I'll provide a link to both. This will even get them. They even say there are a couple of Daphne-Shaggy incidences in the early Fred and Daphne days of Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? For example, in the episode What a Night for a Night, Daphne praises Shaggy as the swingiest gymnast in school. In Never Ape and Ape Man, she whips up a special Shaggy snack just for him. And then kind of gives this as an example. A Disney example, kind of throws us a little bit of a Disney example. The Disney example being that the Shaggy-Daphne pairing has an appeal similar to that of Lady and the Tramp, Aladdin and Jasmine, and even Titanic's, which is not Disney, but still Titanic's, Jack and Rose. That is to say, a ragamuffin-like boy winning a high-class girl. Anyway, those are just examples of why this person feels Daphne and Shaggy make a better pairing. And in fact, there's even, I guess, a nod to that pairing, a bit of fan service, if you will, and a nod to that speculation in the episode, I think, called Night Terrors, or something like that, in the new Mystery Incorporated. Daphne thinks she's about to kiss Fred, and Shaggy's the one she kisses. She doesn't I don't know if she realizes that, or is embarrassed by that, or what. So I guess with that, from what I can tell, from what I read, is a bit of a hint, a subtle hint, a bit of fan service, and a nod, if you will, to fans speculating about the pairing of Shaggy and Daphne back in the old days, and even, from what I can tell, a bit of fan service and a nod to the fans for even getting behind that pairing, getting behind that shipping, if you will. So that's why I believe that happened. It's just me, just my speculation and opinion, but that's why I believe that might have been put into that episode as sort of a nod, like I said, and I know I repeat myself here, but sort of a nod to the fans and to the fact that they paired them before together in those episodes, in the other Scooby-Doo series, the new Scooby-Doo, Scooby-Doo Show, all new Scooby-Doo, Scooby-Doo Show, and 13 Ghosts. Oh, as well as, like I said, kind of give a nod to the fans who were kind of like supporting that pairing, even though this was like a one-time deal in the Mystery Incorporated series. But, you know, it's not a surprise, and I think I mentioned this in my original videos, but it's not a surprise. It's not a surprise that fans would get behind a Shaggy-Daphne pairing. I mean, I like it. I like the pairing. I think it works. I think the dynamic works. I mean, when you look back in the classic episodes, Daphne kind of relates to them in some way. I mean, there are some, like, this one episode, I think, of the new Scooby-Doo movies. I think they get paired up with Dick Van Dyke or somebody. And he's asking people who thinks the place is haunted. Who thinks the funhouse or the carnival is haunted. And when he asks those to raise their hand if they think it's haunted, who raises their hand along with Shaggy and Scooby? Daphne. So, to me, you know, I agree they kind of make a hint because at least she understands where they're coming from. And she's more of the kind that's like, you know what? There's got to be more than just, you know, people in disguises, people wearing masks and all that. Right? I mean, in fact, she even mentions this in Zombie Island. She's like, she tells Fred and Velma, look, can't you guys just accept there's more than just, you know, people in masks scaring people? That there's maybe more than meets the eye, if you will. And that's why I think, you know, the Hanna-Barbera, the people that created Scooby-Doo, Scrappy-Doo show, the new one and the all-new and 13 Ghosts, that's why they paired her up with them, with Shaggy and Scooby and Scrappy, because she's more of the kind that would believe that there is more than just, hey, somebody behind a mask, if you will. She's more willing to accept that. I mean, and you know, it's not the first time people would suggest this either. You take a look at shows like Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers. A lot of people say that, you know, the obvious romantic pairing from the show right off the bat is Chip and Gadget. And that the secondary pairing, even though she makes a one-time appearance, but makes a return in the Boom Studio Comics adaptation of Rescue Rangers, the second romantic pairing is Dale and Foxglove. But then there are fans, even like myself, that feel if Foxglove wasn't around full time, that the most obvious better pairing would be Dale and Gadget. I mean, look how far Gadget goes to kind of make Dale feel better in Double O Chipmunk. Enough said. But again, this is just an update to my video from about 4 years ago. I'm going to let you guys comment down below. Tell me what you guys think. I'll provide the links to the article and my previous video. Comment and respond if you like, and I'll talk to you all later.